Hello, welcome to the Lee 3. Today we got a woodworking project for you. We're here in Middle Tennessee. Got a beautiful slab of oak that hopefully we're going to be able to turn into a river epoxy table. My dad's about to turn 70. He's a great guy, love him to death. Hopefully make something special for him and surprise the big guy on his big day. We're getting some much needed rain right now. Pretty excited about that. Turn around and show everybody how much rain we're getting. Nice. We've been in a drought for quite a while. Turn around here. I'll show you what we're going to do. Got the slab of oak here on the table. I'm going to get some guides set up and we're going to cut it in half. That's going to be our first thing we have to do. Cut it right down the middle, and then we'll work on getting some of this rod out. Stick with me, I'll show you what we're doing next. Alright, we're ready for our first cut. We're going to go through and cut this oak slab pretty close right down the middle. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm just going to flip the sides around and use that as the epoxy for the center, but you want it pretty close to the middle. So I got my guide clamped on, got my skill saw ready. Let's see what we can do. Now here we are. The wood has been cut in two. That's what it's going to look like, and that will have a river going through it, and the middle parts will be covered up with epoxy. Got a lot of rot and bark and places like that that need to be cut out, so I'll do that next and I'll show you guys how I'm going to do it. We'll get to it. Alright, here we are with our piece of wood. It's been cut in half, and now what we have to do is we have to take off this live edge, remove any pieces that are rotting. We got to get rid of all the bad wood. Basically the reason for that, when we put the epoxy in, all that dead wood would try to break off and float up. The epoxy will have a way of just pushing into the wood. So we got to make sure that we've closed up everything we can. So there's lots of areas that are rotted, lots of areas that just aren't in very good shape. This board is going to need a little bit of TLC, but I'm going to start off with the easiest spot, just getting this bark off the edge. See how that just crumbles? It doesn't take hardly any effort at all. It's not much to it. So, just want to make sure I'm not taking off any of the good wood. I just want to take off this loose, brittle stuff on the edge here. Alright, we have got the rot moved out of the wood for the most part. Hopefully there won't be too much left. Got my form made here. So a lot of people, the real fancy guys you see on YouTube, they have these kind of rubber forms that are pre-made, and they make their own forms. I'm not nearly that fancy. I just got a sheet of plywood, covered it with this barrier tape. So what this tape is going to do is it's going to keep the epoxy from sticking to my form. So you can see on all sides it's covered with this tape. And I just built the form to the dimensions that I want my river table to be. So I put some silicone caulk down in all the cracks. So hopefully no epoxy will seep out. We'll see. I also put some silicone underneath each of these boards So there should be a pretty good layer to try and keep the epoxy from seeping out, but we'll see what happens. Make sure there's no loose debris in here. All that dirt and dust out. Now I think I'm ready to add the wood in here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I want it to be pretty close. But at the end of the day, when I pull this out, I'm going to take care of the edges and trim it up on a table saw after this is done. So it's going to get cleaned up a bit. Now we need to just put this in here, slide in like so. That's good. It's a good tight fit. That's what you want. And I think we should get some really cool designs out of this with the epoxy, the way that it's going to look, the way everything's going to turn out. Really excited to see what it does. I'm going to mix up some epoxy and we'll get set to pour. Be right back. Alright, we are ready for everybody's favorite part. Just about time to pour this epoxy. We have the wood clamped down. Everything's ready to go. You can see we've got some blocks put up there. The reason for that is to keep the wood from floating. This epoxy will seep into every crack and crevice that it possibly can. So we got to make sure we got the wood pinned down so that it can't float up when the epoxy gets underneath it. For this epoxy, I'm going to go with a nice, pretty red color. As I told you, this table is for my dad's 70th birthday. He's a big Red Sox fan. So we're going to go with a nice, pretty Red Sox red here. This is a big amount of epoxy, so I want to be very generous with the pigment here. We're going to see how this turns out. This is only half of the epoxy I got. This is a special 4-inch deep cast epoxy that I've got, because this is a pretty thick slab of oak. Going to need it. Hopefully it'll work. Hopefully I've got enough epoxy. Now let's see what color this is going to turn out to be. Take my advice, buy one of these paddles that you can put into your drill. It will make life so much easier for you. Trying to do this by hand would be not a lot of fun. Save you a lot of time and a lot of elbow grease. Alright, let's finish getting this mixed up and I'll show you how we're gonna pour it in. Moment of truth. Let's see how this epoxy looks when we get it poured in. Start in the river, and then I'll go fill some of these cracks. Some of these holes as best we can. That's a start right there. Go mix up some more epoxy. Alright, we had our first epoxy pour, and as you can see, total, complete disaster. This happens, unfortunately. All the epoxy seeped out, nothing stayed in, and it all went down on the floor, down in buckets, down on the floor. Huge mess. I've had it happen before where you'll have slow leaks. unfortunately, this just happened. And didn't have anything to plug it up with, so I just had to watch as dollar bill after dollar bill just seeped out of the form. But, gonna keep going forward. Hopefully get things right this time. I did some research on the interwebs, found this stuff. It is called flex paste. So you've seen this stuff on TV probably a million times, I'm sure. The flex guy who puts like the tape on the bottom of the boat and the boat stops leaking. I don't know about that, but I've seen a lot of people who swear by this stuff, say it'll stop an epoxy leak immediately. Wish I would have had it last time, but I didn't. So I have caked all the edges of the form. Hopefully that'll keep epoxy from seeping out, and we'll see what happens this time. If it seeps out again, this may turn into a rage video, and you might just see me go completely crazy. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Let's see what we can do. Alright, epoxy pour 2.0. Hopefully this goes better. Cross your fingers. Lost my cameraman, so hopefully I don't lose my GoPro into the epoxy. Oh, got a little piece of dirt in the epoxy. I don't want that. Sit that for a second. I'll fish that out. All right. Dirt out. Epoxy in. Let's go. Is dry. We are ready to get this bad boy out of the form. As you can see, I had a lot of bubbles pop up. I think that's because I was drying the epoxy at way too high of a temperature. Need to keep this cool around 70-ish degrees, probably an indoor temperature. But I did it out in my garage, and it's been around 100 degrees for the past few weeks here in Middle Tennessee, so it dried quick, lots of bubbles. Normally you would just pop those with a torch, but didn't happen this time. Oh well. Let's see if we can get this out of the form. It should not stick to this construction tape. Since you've seen me, we have done some work on the table. I don't think you're going to recognize it. Took it to a buddy who has a CNC machine. He flattened it for us, got it all smooth. Done a lot of sanding. I've done a lot of sanding. And I've done a lot of sanding. And I've done a lot of sanding. In case you didn't pick up on it, there's a lot of sanding to this. So, the table's going to look a lot different than the last time you see it. Let's see what we got. Looking a little bit different than what you saw last time. I have routed it, put an edge on it, just a simple 1/4 round over bit for the edges. Got some really good color. I'm really excited to see how these cracks and gaps and everything look once we get the final coat. I am ready now to put my final coat on. Well, not my final coat. Second to last coat. This is usually everybody's favorite part. Put this on. This is similar to like a mineral bath. All the colors are going to pop. Everything's going to look real pretty. I'm going to do one thin coat. Sand it. After it dries, of course. And then it's going to scuff it up, make it look all nasty again. Then I'm going to put one final flood coat on it. Everything should look really pretty, really awesome. See what happens. tabletop epoxy. Just going to make that beautiful clear coat. It's going to make it feel like glass when anybody touches it. All I'm going to do is pour it here in the middle. I'm going to take a little scraper thingy. I'm sure there's a more technical name for it than that. But today we're going to call it the scraper thingy. And we're going to move this around, make sure we get a good coat all over the top. Already you can start to see some of those colors pop. Man, that red looks just gorgeous. Love the way that looks. These bubbles. It's just a smooth coat. Now I'm just going back and getting any that I can see. Keep getting a few popping up over here. It's probably going to be a few little unsealed holes in the wood. That's why you do 2 coats of this. So we'll let this dry, check it out, see how it looks. Alright, it's the big moment. We've got Dad's table ready. We're about to surprise him with it. Gonna have him come out this door here in just a minute. And I'll give you a sneak peek. Here's the finished table. Sweet little coffee table. Here we go. Hope he loves it.
That is beautiful. It's a beaut, Clark. Wow, I haven't seen this sitting out in your garage.
Yeah, not once, have you?
Actually, I haven't. That's awesome, man. I love it.
Of course it's out of gas. Why wouldn't it be?
Blooper.
So,